I spent 15 years building my father's construction business into something worth passing down. When I proposed to Amanda after 5 years together, I thought our future was set. Then, everything changed in one awful week. My younger brother Jason not only betrayed me with Amanda, but somehow convinced our father to hand him both the family business and the lake house that was promised to me. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about overcoming life's worst betrayals. Family has always meant everything to me. Growing up in Millbrook, Pennsylvania, a town small enough that everyone knows your business, I learned early on about loyalty and hard work. Our family construction company, Hartwell Construction, was started by my grandfather and passed down to my father, Walter. From age 14, I spent every summer and weekend learning the trade, while Jason, 3 years younger, had freedom to pursue sports and social activities. After high school, I skipped college, despite having scholarship offers. Dad needed help with the business, and someone had to step up. Kenneth, he told me, this company will be yours someday. Your sacrifice now means security for your future family. Those words became my North Star. While Jason went to business school, I learned construction from the foundation, up working alongside our crews, earning their respect through sweat and problem solving. I met Amanda at 27, during a commercial renovation of the bank where she worked as a loan officer. She had amber eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and this way of making me feel like the most important person in any room. Our connection was immediate. Within 6 months, we were talking about our future, and by year 2, she had moved into my apartment. "When are you going to make an honest woman out of me?" She would tease, and I always answered the same way: when the timing is right. The truth was, I wanted to secure my position in the family business first. Dad had promised me leadership once I turned 35, and I wanted to give Amanda the security she deserved. Jason returned to town after business school and a few years working for a development company in Philadelphia. Dad welcomed him into the business, despite my concerns. "The company is growing," Dad insisted. "We need his modern perspective." I tried to be supportive, showing Jason the ropes, introducing him to our contractors and clients. He was charming, quick with numbers, and brought in some impressive new accounts. I was proud of him, even if I sometimes felt the sting of how easily things came to him. Our Sunday family dinners became a tradition after Jason returned. Amanda got along well with everyone, especially my mother, who was already planning our wedding despite no official engagement. For 3 years, things seemed perfect. The business was thriving. I was saving for a house. Amanda and I were solid. Jason was proving himself valuable to the company. Then, things began to change. Amanda started working late, became protective of her phone, and seemed distracted during our time together. At first, I chalked it up to stress. The bank was going through a merger, and her position was uncertain. I tried to be understanding, giving her space while planning the perfect proposal for our 5-year anniversary. Meanwhile, at work, I noticed unusual meetings on the calendar that I had not been invited to. Dad and Jason would fall silent when I entered rooms. At Sunday dinners, there were inside jokes between Jason and Amanda that I was not privy to. Once I overheard Jason and Dad discussing transition plans, only to have them change the subject when I approached. The engagement ring burned a hole in my pocket for 2 weeks before I finally found the courage to propose. I planned a surprise weekend at the vineyard where we had spent our first anniversary. Amanda seemed genuinely surprised and happy when I got down on one knee, tears in her eyes as she said yes. That night she was more passionate than she had been in months, and I felt foolish for having doubted our connection. The bubble burst 3 weeks later when I came home early from a job site hoping to surprise Amanda with lunch. Her car was in the driveway, unusual for a Tuesday. As I approached our front door, I heard laughter inside. Her laughter, but also a deeper, familiar voice. I used my key quietly, something in my gut telling me to be careful. The house smelled of the cologne Jason always wore, too strong and expensive for my taste. I found his jacket thrown over our couch before I heard sounds from our bedroom that turned my blood to ice. What followed feels like a nightmare sequence that plays in slow motion whenever I remember it. The confrontation. Amanda's initial denial. Jason emerging from our bathroom with a towel around his waist, eyes wide with something between shame and defiance. The confessions that poured out once they realized they were caught. It just happened, Amanda claimed. Though Jason's averted eyes told me different. How long, I demanded. Does it matter? Jason replied suddenly, finding his voice. 8 months, Amanda admitted quietly. 8 months. While I was planning a proposal saving for our future, they were betraying me in my own bed. In that moment, I felt like I was watching myself from above as I packed a bag and walked out of the house that no longer felt like home. The next week passed in a blur of sleepless nights on my friend Tom's couch and mindless work days where I functioned on autopilot. I ignored calls and texts from both Amanda and Jason, focusing instead on the construction of the new community center, a project I had brought to the company and managed from conception. I thought work would be my salvation, the one area of my life that remained untouched by their betrayal. I was wrong. On Friday afternoon, Dad called an emergency family business meeting. Mandatory attendance, including extended family who held minor shares. My stomach knotted as I entered the conference room to find Jason and Dad already seated at the head of the table, unusual, since I typically sat at Dad's right as his second in command. Thank you all for coming. Dad began, looking uncomfortable but determined. Hartwell Construction has reached a pivotal moment. After much consideration, I have decided it is time for new leadership to take us into the future. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, I thought. Despite everything, Dad was going to honor his promise and announce my promotion to CEO. Jason has demonstrated exceptional vision and business acumen. Dad continued, not meeting my eyes. Effective immediately, he will assume the position of Chief Executive Officer. The room fell silent, except for the rushing sound in my ears. Jason stood thanking everyone for their support, outlining his plans for expansion and modernization. I sat frozen, unable to process what was happening. Additionally, Dad added, after Jason finished speaking, as a symbol of my confidence in Jason's leadership and personal future, I am transferring ownership of the family lake house to him and his future wife. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room. Everyone knew that house had been promised to me since childhood. It was where I had taken Amanda on our third date, where I had planned for us to start our family. Future wife, my Aunt Margaret asked. Jason cleared his throat. Yes. Amanda and I are expecting a child. We plan to marry before the birth. The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. Not only had they been having an affair, but Amanda was pregnant with my brother's child, and my father was rewarding them both with everything that had been promised to me. When the meeting ended, I followed Dad into his office, slamming the door behind us. How could you do this? I demanded, my voice breaking. 15 years I have given to this company. I turned down scholarships, relationships, opportunities, all because you promised me this would be mine. Business is not about promises, Kenneth. It is about what is best for the company, Dad replied, straightening papers on his desk without looking up. Jason brings fresh ideas, connections with modern developers, and he is starting a family. The Hartwell name needs to continue, and I was not going to provide that continuation. Amanda and I were engaged, and now she is with Jason, Dad said flatly. These things happen. You need to man up and accept the situation. There will still be a place for you in the company. Under Jason's leadership, of course. I left the office without another word, driving aimlessly until I found myself at the construction site of the community center. The building that should have been my crowning achievement now felt like a monument to my naivety. The following weeks were excruciating. Word spread quickly in our small town. Pitying glances followed me everywhere. Extended family who had witnessed my humiliation at the meeting seemed to side with Jason and Dad, talking excitedly about the baby and the wedding. Only my mother called regularly, though even she seemed torn between loyalty to me and excitement about becoming a grandmother. I moved into a small apartment above the hardware store, unable to face finding a proper place. I started drinking too much, showing up to work with hangovers that did not go unnoticed. Jason now. My boss called me into his office to discuss my performance issues. This cannot continue, he said, leaning back in what had been Dad's chair. Your personal feelings cannot interfere with the business. My personal feelings. You stole my fiancée and my birthright in the same month. I replied, voice flat with exhaustion. Amanda was never right for you. She needs someone more ambitious, Jason stated coldly. As for the company, Dad made a business decision. It was never guaranteed to be yours. 15 years of promises say different. Promises change. Adapt or leave Kenneth. Those are your options. I chose a third option. I stopped caring. I did the minimum required, withdrew from family events, and spent evenings staring at walls in my apartment. I watched from a distance as Amanda's pregnancy progressed as she and Jason moved into the lake house that should have been mine, as they planned a rushed wedding that the whole town attended while I worked a job site alone. Rock bottom came the night I found myself sleeping in my office after drinking an entire bottle of whiskey, unable to face even the sad apartment I now called home. Morning found me retching in the office bathroom, catching a glimpse of my haggard reflection, unrecognizable even to myself. That same day, fate intervened. I ran into Sofia Martinez, a former high school classmate who had gone to business school with Jason before starting her own architectural firm in Boston. She was in town visiting family and needed construction advice for a project. Over coffee that became dinner, I found myself telling her everything. Unlike the pitying or judgmental responses I had grown accustomed to, Sophia listened with clear eyes and practical questions. So your expertise built half their client relationships. You know all the contractors personally, and you have managed their major projects for years, she summarized. Kenneth, do you realize how valuable you are? I blinked the thought foreign after months of feeling worthless. And this new hotel development Jason is pushing through the one cutting corners on environmental impact studies. Have you documented your concerns? She continued. I have emails, site reports, everything I admitted. Not that anyone listens. Sophia leaned forward. They will listen when their shortcuts cause problems. And the clients whose relationships you built will listen to you with or without the Hartwell name behind you. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The next morning, I began to document everything. Every questionable decision Jason had made. Every loyal client relationship I had nurtured. Every innovative construction solution I had developed that the company now claimed as their standard approach. I started meeting privately with key clients, not to poach them, but to strengthen relationships. I researched non-compete clauses and found ours had a loophole for independently developed construction techniques. I reconnected with industry contacts who had always respected my work ethic. Most importantly, I started to see my situation clearly. This was not just about betrayal. It was about value, legacy, and standing up for principles. The revenge I craved would not come from destroying what my grandfather had built, but from building something better. Over the next 6 months, I transformed. Physically, I returned to the gym, cut out alcohol, and started sleeping properly again. Professionally, I performed my job exactly as required while laying groundwork for my future. I consulted with attorneys about my legal position, secured private funding from industry contacts, and developed innovative construction techniques that would become my signature. The most difficult part was gathering evidence of Jason and Walter's questionable business tactics without crossing ethical lines myself. I never stole documents or violated confidentiality agreements. I simply kept meticulous personal records of decisions I disagreed with, especially regarding the rushed hotel development that had bypassed standard environmental and safety reviews. This dual existence was exhausting but clarifying. Each day, working under Jason's increasingly arrogant leadership strengthened my resolve. Each interaction with clients who complained about changes in service quality since the transition confirmed my suspicions. Each family dinner I declined freed me from the web of obligation that had bound me to people who did not value my sacrifice. The emotional struggle was constant. Some days the desire for revenge burned so hot I could taste it, making me consider options that would destroy the family business entirely. Other days I questioned whether I should simply walk away, start fresh, somewhere new. In the end, integrity won out. I would compete, not sabotage. I would succeed, not merely cause failure. When everything was in place, I scheduled a meeting with Jason and Dad, arriving with a single envelope. "What is this about?" Jason asked, annoyed at the interruption to his day. "My resignation," I replied calmly, placing the envelope on the desk. "Effective 2 weeks from today." Dad looked up sharply. "Do not be hasty, Kenneth. Where will you go? What will you do?" "I am starting my own construction company, focusing on sustainable commercial development," I stated simply. "Millbrook is growing. There is room for competition." Jason laughed, dismissively. "With what clients? What capital? What experience running a business rather than just following orders?" "You will find that answers to those questions in time," I replied, standing to leave. "I wish you both well." "This is about Amanda is not it," Jason called after me. "You need to get over it. She chose me." I paused at the door. "This has not been about Amanda for a long time. This is about what I have earned versus what was given to you. Good luck with the hotel project. You will need it." Their dismissive attitudes were expected. Neither believed I could succeed without the Hartwell name. Neither understood that I had been the foundation of that name for 15 years. The launch of Kenneth Builder and Associates targeted a premium market segment that Hartwell Construction had never properly served. My first hire was Tom, my friend, who had given me a couch during my darkest days and who happened to be the best project manager in the county. Next came several key employees from Hartwell who had grown dissatisfied under Jason's leadership. My first major contract was not won by undercutting Hartwell's bid, but by offering innovative energy-efficient solutions that would save the client money over time. The second came from a developer who had worked with me personally for years and had been waiting for an excuse to follow me elsewhere. By month 3, we had secured enough work to be profitable within the first year, unprecedented for a new construction company. Meanwhile, the hotel development that Jason had rushed through approvals began experiencing problems. Anonymous tips led to regulatory investigations of the shortcuts in environmental impact studies. Construction delays mounted as issues that I had warned about emerged. Costs skyrocketed beyond initial estimates. The climactic confrontation came at the annual Builders Association Gala, an event that gathered every construction professional in 3 counties. Both Hartwell Construction and Kenneth Builder and Associates had been nominated for Community Impact Awards, my nomination coming from the volunteer work we had done repairing the local youth center. I arrived alone, having declined Sophia's offer to fly in for the event. This was something I needed to face independently. The whispers followed me across the room, speculation about how I had managed to establish a competing business so quickly. I greeted former colleagues, politely careful to take the high road, despite the rumors Jason had spread about my departure. Halfway through the evening, disaster struck for Hartwell Construction. News broke that a partial collapse had occurred at the hotel construction site. No one was injured, but photos of the structural failure circulated quickly on attendees' phones. Jason, who had been smugly working the room earlier, now huddled with Dad and their lawyers in a corner. The collapse occurred exactly where I had documented concerns about inadequate foundation work. Though I took no pleasure in the failure that could have hurt workers, I felt vindicated in my assessment. When Jason approached me later, his face flushed with anger and alcohol, I braced for confrontation. "You did this," he hissed. "You sabotaged the project. You turned in those anonymous regulatory complaints." "I did nothing except document legitimate concerns." While I worked there, I replied evenly. "Concerns you ignored. The foundation issues were predictable to anyone who bothered to run proper soil tests." "You will regret this," Jason threatened. "Dad trusted you. I trusted you. That trust should have extended to my professional judgment about construction safety," I countered. "And perhaps to other areas as well." Before Jason could respond, commotion broke out across the room. Dad had collapsed, clutching his chest. Despite everything, I rushed to him, helping until paramedics arrived. It was a mild heart attack, brought on by stress, according to the doctors. As I sat in the waiting room while Jason made calls, I realized revenge was not the satisfaction I had imagined it would be. In the months following Dad's heart attack, Hartwell Construction faced mounting troubles. The hotel project was indefinitely suspended, pending multiple investigations. Their reputation suffered as news of the structural failure spread. Meanwhile, Kenneth Builder and Associates continued to grow with a reputation for quality and innovation that attracted premium clients. 3 months after the gala, I received a call I never expected. Dad asked to meet privately, away from the office, away from Jason. We met at a diner on the edge of town, neutral territory, where we had sometimes had breakfast when I was younger. "The business is in trouble," he admitted, after the small talk ran out. "The hotel project failure, the regulatory fines, the loss of client confidence. Jason is not handling it well." I nodded but offered no immediate solutions. Dad had made his choice. "I was wrong," he continued, the words clearly difficult for him, "about many things, about Jason's readiness, about what was best for the company, about you." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Hartwell Construction is still your grandfather's legacy. Still your legacy regardless of who holds the title of CEO. I am asking for your help to save it." "At what cost?" I asked. "Return to work under Jason Pretend." "The past year never happened." "No," Dad replied, surprising me. "I am asking you to consider a merger. Your company with what remains of ours. Your leadership, your innovations. The Hartwell name still has value in this town, but right now yours has more." The conversation lasted hours, moving from tentative negotiations to serious discussion of terms. By the time we finished, we had outlined a path forward, a merged company with me, as CEO, Dad returning to his advisory role, and Jason moved to a position in sales where his charm could be an asset rather than his poor construction knowledge a liability. The family dynamics were more complicated. Jason resisted the change initially, but with the company facing bankruptcy, he had little choice. Our relationship remained strained, professional, but distant. Amanda avoided me entirely, which suited me fine. Their marriage showed signs of stress, as Jason's golden future tarnished and financial pressures mounted. I took no pleasure in their difficulties, but felt no obligation to ease them either. The most unexpected development came from Walter himself. Once the business transition was complete, he approached me about the lake house. "It was always meant for you," he said. "Another mistake I made. I would like to correct it if possible." "Jason and Amanda have made it their home," I replied. "They have a child there now. They can find another house. That one belongs in your future, not theirs." I considered his offer, but ultimately declined. Some things once given away cannot be reclaimed without causing more damage. I will build my own lake house someday. My personal healing journey progressed alongside the business transformation. Sophia and I stayed in touch, her occasional visits from Boston becoming more frequent. Unlike Amanda, she challenged me intellectually and valued the very parts of me that Amanda had found lacking. There was no rush, no pressure, but something genuine grew between us. I established a mentorship program for young builders, finding purpose in sharing knowledge with the next generation. I rebuilt relationships with extended family, who had initially sided with Jason, but now sought to reconnect. I even found a way to be civil with Amanda at family gatherings for the sake of my niece, a toddler, who deserved better than to inherit our broken relationships. The company that emerged from the merger became stronger than either previous entity, combining Hartwell's established name with my innovative approaches. We won accolades for sustainable building practices and community involvement. The very failure that had nearly destroyed Hartwell became a case study in our training programs about the importance of proper procedures and speaking up about safety concerns. Looking back now from my office, where a photograph of my grandfather breaking ground on his first project sits beside newer images of our current work, I can trace how betrayal became the foundation for something stronger than what was lost. The pain forced growth that comfort never would have inspired. The broken trust revealed which relationships were worth rebuilding and which were better left in the past. I learned that living well truly is the best revenge, but also that revenge itself is less satisfying than creating something meaningful. Breaking toxic cycles requires courage, whether in business practices or family dynamics. And forgiveness, I discovered, is not about excusing what happened, but refusing to let it determine your future. What betrayal have you experienced? that ultimately led to unexpected growth? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that betrayal is not the end of their story, but potentially the beginning of a better one. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes the path forward requires leaving behind what you once thought you could not live without.